resume?
Yeah, it was last time.
Do you have it?
It actually was submitted as an application for Charles Kilgore's position, but Charles is still currently on the board. He didn't actually come in and apply for a vacancy board thing with us at the township office. I believe he probably wants it though, I'm not sure. But that's not what was submitted to the township.
Is he here this evening?
That's why he wasn't.
Are you interested still in the vacancy board position? Please come up and to the microphone.
Hello, my name's Nelson Warder. I'd like to echo Mr. Timkins' comments. I'd like to serve the township a little bit. I've lived here about 30 years. I think I owe the township something. I'd like to get involved in some of the things that are going on. So that's why I applied for the vacant board seat. That was my intent to apply for the vacant board seat.
Okay.
Well, it's none of my business.
Yeah, it is.
My
Joe.
application
It's
is
Okay.
township.
Mr. Vaughn,
The application's
please.
on file.
No? All right. Thank you.
Have the secretary present the application.
Any other comments or questions from the board? All those in favor? Aye. Nay. Nay. So it passes 3-2. Unfinished business, Rouse Chamberlain. Did you want to review that real quickly, or let them?
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to interrupt, I just have a question. Your secretary said he didn't formally put in a proper application.
There's not really a formal application, it's just, he did email in saying he was interested in it, so.
You have that?
Do we,
We have that, yes.
you have it, okay. If somebody didn't formally put an email or an application and they want to run for this position, is it possible to step up right now?
I mean, the vote's already passed, so there's
Right, there was two people who wanted to ask a question, but we didn't get a chance to. I just want to know, I know you've already voted and passed it, okay.
Can I elaborate on something? Just real fast.
Yes,
It would just take a second.
real quickly.
Okay,
Please.
real quickly. If there is a resignation, the vacancy board member doesn't necessarily go on the board. And anyone that's interested in applying, if someone was to resign, I know myself as a board member would want you to put your applications in for supervisor. And if there is a majority board here, we don't even have to turn to the vacancy board member for the vote. And correct me if I'm wrong, if there's a majority vote amongst the board to choose one of the applicants that wants to be on the board, then that would be the way it would go. It wouldn't turn to the vacancy board member at all.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification. All right, so the Rouse Chamberlain update, do you want to update?
I'll leave it to them. I
Okay.
know John Pender was here from Rouse Chamberlain as well as Addison.
Mr. Pender?
Good evening, everybody. Again, John Penders with Rouse Chamberlain Homes. Last time we had appeared before this board on the Ridgecrest matter was back in 2014, I believe. We had worked on a couple of minor plan changes at that time. Earlier in 15, we had lined up our financing and had actually been in the process of working through what was the final step in this. We had all the final plan approvals in place and all the permits are in place for the project. Again, the background on this is it's 70 new single-family lots and 2 existing farmhouses on about a 140-acre property that's at the corner of Westchester and South Count Roads. And we have been the equitable owner of this property for a couple of years now. The current record owner is Mr. Moser through one of his entities. With our financing in place right now, we had been working with your previous solicitor on finalizing what were the sort of final agreement documents that need to be in place between the developer and the township on this. So developer's agreement, stormwater agreements, and the like. Those were basically teed up. Obviously, the board has made a change in that solicitor position. So we have reached out to Mr. Sienna's office here to go ahead and work with them on revising to use their form documents that they would prefer as opposed to the ones that Mr. Pompo was having us work with. Our expectation is that we'll have those finalized and can be back before you at your February meeting for consideration of those agreements and execution. So this would be again for the first phase of that, which is 27 lots.
When are you looking to break ground then?
Whenever the weather cooperates has over the last week, so.
You plan for this year though?
Yes.
Sorry, I read your email, yeah.
Yep.
And that's 27 lots, you said?
27 in the first phase, and it'll be 43 in the second phase, sir, yes.
So we will work with the township engineer to make sure all of the check boxes are checked, respect to all the agreements and final action items before the plans are released and agreements signed.
Certainly.
As far as the gravity sewage with that, because that, if I remember right, there's a time frame that South Callan Road will be closed down because you have to cross over with the gravity. So when do you plan, do you have a time frame, or can you allow are you gonna give notice to the township, like when you think you might close that for the gravity line? I think it has to cross and then go, you have an easement agreement with the Christmas tree farm there.
You're exactly right, yes. It starts on the east side of South Callan, and it crosses over, and we enter the Poe property down at the corner, so.
Only because we have Mortonville Road out, so with that road out, and then the South Callan Road's closed out, it's just basically South Bailey or Oakland Road for residents on that side. Do you know a rough estimation of how long that it would take to get that pipeline across?
I guess the first answer is that it will never be closed, absolutely.
Okay,
It'll be closed on a temporary basis, because fortunately, other than providing some sewer laterals for existing residents along the east side, we will not have to be in South Callan other than to cross the roadway.
okay, so you just shoot it underneath them?
Exactly.
Okay, I wasn't sure,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so that's great.
So we would try to keep it open on a, more or less a day-to-day basis. We would have the plates and everything over the crossing if we needed to on a temporary.
Okay, I was worried about it being closed, all right.
We'll work very closely with you folks to make sure we don't shut down another road in the township, so.
Any other questions for Mr. Petty? All right, thank you very much.
Look forward to working with you folks.
Police Department, the December police report is submitted and in the back, available in the back. I'll make the motion here to hire part-time police officer Francis J. O'Donnell to full-time police officer at the rate of $27.43 per hour per the CBA.
Second.
Comments or questions? Is there a hand in the back? Mrs. Scott, can you come up to the microphone, identify yourself, please?
I question why this has come up again, because it was voted down at the last meeting. I would state that I would object to the transfer of South Coatesville, Alan Novak, Lou Wilson's part-time police officer to become a full-time officer in
He's a-
East Fallowfield.
He's a part-time police officer
Excuse
here
me.
now.
I mean, that's my statement.
Okay.
We are financially strapped. This present Board of Supervisors failed to watch the budget, and I believe, what is it, 300 to 400,000 in the red? And I truly believe that most of that is created by our unionized police department, which many of the matters that they force upon us, such as mandatory overtime, is breaking the bank. We can utilize backup if needed, as was explained at the previous meeting, that there's Parksburg, there's South Coatesville, there's City of Coatesville, South Coatesville Borough, Parksburg. So we will not be understaffed in any way or have need of another full-time officer. I found, I don't know whether his name is John O'Donnell or Francis O'Donnell, because I've seen it both ways. So in a way, I don't know who are we hiring, or who are you attempting to hire? He spoke out at the last township meeting. I found his comments unprofessional, inappropriate, more or less threatening and bullying. I would not want this police officer to be a full-time officer in our police department, let alone a part-time officer. I don't think he represents well his police status. And you do remember how degrading he was against Lou Wilson, his boss at South Coatesville Borough. That was totally just not a good thing. Yes, those comments should have been, well, they should have never been made. So,
Yeah, please.
they were facts.
Please don't speak out of turn.
Yeah. How do we know they're facts? To say that your police chief doesn't know how to read or write? Well, I would not want this police, I'm a lifelong resident of the township, and I sat up on the board, and I know the police department. So I would object to hiring him full-time. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Someone come up front here.
My name's Wes Smong, 55 Glenlee Lane, here in East Fallowfield Township. I've lived here 3.5 years. When I first moved here, I'm prior military, okay? And so whenever you move around, you get to know the local government and see how things work there so that you can fit in. So I used that same approach here and started studying, and one of the things I stumbled into was the budget and the budget wars, okay? And it wasn't by any plan or design on my part, it's just the way it worked out. We have about a $1.4 million budget. In excess of 55% of that budget is the police department, all right? Now, I live here, I don't live over in Brantford Village. The rules make the facts of life over in Brantford, because people are a little closer, may be a little different. But basically, this is a law-abiding community that most of the folks that I've encountered in the 3.5 years that I've been here do their best to follow the rules and do things right and yada, yada, yada. And yes, you need a police department. But what we need, and I'm not security is an important thing, and we're on the edge of some problem areas, and that could become an issue here. But we need to look at the overall picture and the balance of priorities. And so what it boils down to, I don't know, Mr., the current police officer that you're planning to hire or would like to hire. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's not a personality issue, and I wasn't here for the last couple of meetings, and so I'm pretty much unaware of those circumstances. But just, I've been doing budgets and governance for 42 plus years on 4 continents, okay? And more nations than I can count, and I can only count one more than one. But having 55% of your total budget coming out of one department, okay, when you've got to deliver a full spectrum set of services to the entire community, okay, is problematic, all right? And the board doesn't have any control now, okay, unfortunately, because they abdicated their responsibilities in the negotiation for the police officer's contract, and I made that quite clear before we were going into it a couple of years back. And so, in terms of the laws, the legal binding agreements, they're required to follow the rules that we agreed to. And it was your elected board that chose to agree to those rules. They didn't have to. Now, you could have taken it to arbitration, and the Tedeferen did that, and it cost them big time. And so that's the reason the board chose not to do that. It cost Tedeferen a fortune. So that's the background here. I think some of the feelings that you sense on that is the disproportionate allocation of resources to a single entity. And I've lived in multiple states and multiple countries, and I think I have a fair, reasonably objective opinion, okay? And I don't have an axe to grind here, but I've noticed, I've lived in the county of Chester County for 20 years, okay? We arrived right after the snowstorm in '96, okay? I guess we brought it, I don't know.
Is there,
Anyway, yeah,
the motion on the floor, is there?
the police departments by certain constituencies, basically the ruling townships, okay, get used as a whipping, as a control mechanism, okay?
Do you have a
Yes.
point on the
Yes.
motion for the
Okay.
person we're trying to
The
hire?
budget is way too high, okay? There is not a clear and compelling reason, okay? I've looked at Chief Porter's numbers. There's not a case history and a clear and compelling reason to hire an additional police officer. And our budget is overdrawn, and it's also skewed to the tune of 55%. And most, the newer members haven't even read it. And they haven't read the legal agreements. And they haven't read the Constitution, and that disqualifies you for functioning for your job. Because in
Okay,
every
thank you.
job that I had, you had to learn the rules that
Okay.
governed your job.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted, just to point out, what's that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, by hiring Johnny full-time, we are replacing Justin Fonig, as you know, who did resign. So to me, you know, Wes, you mentioned about statistics and crime and things like that, so my whole thing is public safety, and the fact that we have a proactive police department versus a reactive police department is the reason East Fallowfield is safe. It is necessary to hire another full-timer. It's not an additional full-timer. It is a full-timer to replace the full-timer who left. So essentially to me, a vote to not hire a full-timer is a vote to reduce the police force.
Yes.
And just, Chris, not to put you on the spot, but could you just, I know the last time you spoke, obviously there's some more people here tonight that were not here at the last meeting about Johnny and what an asset he would be to our force. He is already, but as a full-timer as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Johnny O'Donnell's been here now for 2+ years. He's actually given up other jobs that he had in the county as a police officer to come work for us and put in 70 hours every 2 weeks to cover up some slots that we're already missing. He's very well trained. I can tell you that for a fact, because I put him through the training. So, and he is a great people person, and that's what we hire as police officers for our community.
Thank you. Sure, if you can come up to the microphone, identify yourself. Thank you.
My name is Martin Bauer. I'm a resident of Branford Village, 154 Millbury Road. And I just came on behalf of Chief Porter and the police department just to share 2 small stories. You know, I didn't know how I was going to explain this, but the first story is that I was lucky to be the primary caregiver of my mother in her later years. She just died in 2013 at 95. And one good thing I can say for East Fallowfield was there were multiple times that we had to call the EMTs. It was a within-minute response, most of the time from Chief Porter showing up. Obviously, he lives in the neighborhood, but my fiance and I, we kind of joked around a little bit. He must be sitting in his uniform, sitting in the chair if he got here that fast. And that was a fantastic thing, you know, saved my mother's life multiple times by, you know, the fast response of the police and also the EMTs that came, which I think were Modena. So thank you if any of those people are present, Chief. The other thing I wanted to mention was in regards to the personal people service, I have a young daughter who's a minor. There was an occasion where my daughter witnessed a crime, and I did call the chief and I said, you know, what should I do? And basically there were 2 options. To have my daughter involved in some type of a legal action, or figure out another way to take care of it. So I just want to mention the chief came over in plain clothes, talked to my daughter. She recognized him from being, around when the EMTs came. And the chief settled it in a good way. And that's why, I kind of feel like, I do think, the budget needs to be maintained, looked at. But at the same time, I'd like to, cast my support for East Fallowfield Township. So, thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Excuse me, Steve,
Yes, Charlie.
to make a comment.
Sure.
I still was going to be able to do this, but I'm not.
Okay.
I'm gonna resign. As of now.
Mr. Kilgore, if you could submit your resignation by letter to the township secretary.
Chuck, you all right? You all right, Chuck? Do you need something? You need something? Okay. Are you sure? Okay. Good? Yeah.
In the back, can you please go up and identify yourself?
My name is John Abel, I'm a resident of Northwoods. In my previous neighborhood was Branford Village. I lived in the community for 13 years. Yeah, budgets have to be met. By not hiring this other officer full-time, what is going to be the overtime repercussions that are going to affect the police department going over budget at that point? So that's one thing right there to look at. The second thing is response times. All right, between the fire and the police, they go on in this township. I know, I've been a volunteer firefighter in this county for 25 years. All right, not one of these officers, and Ms. Scott, I think if you asked that officer today to apologize for his actions in the heat of the moment, he probably would. As towards you, I will also apologize to you for my vocal last meeting as well. You all need to come to an agreement. I just watched you vote 5-3. The only thing you guys agreed on so far was the stuff the lawyer said. If you can't figure it out on your own, as a group together, then that's failed leadership. That's the bottom line. Okay, you can't expect Chris to work in a hostile work environment if he's going to be threatened with his job every 30 days. Okay? Backdoor politics do not have a play in this community. And you know what? I seriously regret voting for any of you that want to play backdoor politics. Because at the end of the day, it's my life, it's my neighbor's lives that are at risk. Okay? If you have a fire call at 3 o'clock in the morning and you cut funding to the Westwood or the Modena Fire Company, they can't afford fuel, that's on your heads. All right? I think at the end of the day, you all need to work with all your departments and say, here's a realistic budget. We need to work together because it's a lot easier if you came in here and said, we got Chris's support, we have this person's support, this is what we have to do to make it work. Unfortunately, the reason why you have collective bargaining units and unions is because of actions that you took at the last meeting. That's the honest to God reason why people have to have representation. If you can't sit here as a board of supervisors and talk with your chief of police, then what are you? You're all just a bunch of lone sheep just doing whatever you want. And that's not how we're going to move forward. Chris, you were out of the room. I asked you, if we don't hire this officer full-time tonight, what's the overtime repercussions it's going to affect?
Well, it's going to affect our part-time budget to the point where it's going to run over at some point. I mean, going forward because we're 24/7. As you also know, that we do have another full-time officer out on long-term disability. It's just a lot of time we got to fill.
We need another full-time.
And I can only work the part-timers 70 hours every 2 weeks per the contract.
So that's be my 2 cents. Is that by not hiring the guy tonight, it is a mistake.
Thank you.
Very well said.
Mr. Rhodes?
Buddy Rose of Clarence Rose. I live at 2215 Strasburg Road. And it doesn't matter how long people live here, you know, just because I live here 70 years, people just move in, you're part of the township. And I just want to make a comment on the one gentleman. I'm sorry. I don't want a board that has agreed. The county commissioners don't agree on everything. As long as the person votes their conscience and really take the concern of all the townships. Yeah, we all realize we have three main, today, one of the most departments that is needed is the road department. And we all know what a great job this township has done. Other townships and boroughs, that's the reason why the school boards, Coastville hadn't been open because of the city of Coastville. But in reference to the board, I'm glad that you do have a little bit more control. The residents showed a lot of disrespect. And the same, I'm sure that officer would apologize to Mr. Wilson because he's still working this out. Because the only thing I would say with Mr. The chief is the lack of communication that the board has with all the departments. And some of the departments, and I don't like the idea of texting from up on the board and texting people to come to meeting. I would like to see all you people here at the budget meetings. Just same with the county commissioners and the other town. I've been in a lot of townships and I've been involved in this community for a lot of years, so I have no acts of crime. But I do say, and some of the police officers have been very good, you know, and they have a job that's non-thankful. Police departments throughout the country is taking a beating by the public. Certain groups, I'll put it that way, without getting involved in that. But I'd just like the board to consider what we should do when we hire people. It should be a communication between the chief and all the board, not just one, because all five of you were elected. So it should be better communication between the departments before they hire people. And also they review the applicants. You know, yeah, you go by your chief of police because he knows the person, but you should know the person. All right, same with TAG, with the road department. We have a lot of part-time guys that don't even, or not even on the list anymore. All right, and he has a hard job today. Some guys are working a lot of hours. So I just want this board to get a little bit more active. And I know it's time consuming because we don't have a township manager. We went through 3 of them, all right? And we've been going through treasurers and secretaries for the last 12 years. So I just want a little bit more communications with the departments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Steve, I mean,
Yeah,
this came up after the last meeting. I mean, there's, you know, there's no lack of communication with myself and the heads of the departments. I don't think. I've talked to TAG every day since the storm. I talk to Chris probably every other day. Last meeting, he recommended to hire full-time, and I'm behind him 100%. That's what we pay him to do, is to run the department. So as far as communication goes, I don't think there's any lack of communication with me, with our department heads. I mean, I don't think there's, I mean, I don't know. And I can't speak for all you guys either, but I don't think there's a lack of communication with any supervisors and any department heads.
Just a couple more comments and then we'll take the vote. This gentleman here, you had your hand raised there.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I-
Can you come up to the microphone, just identify yourself?
I am not going to approach the subject that you're on, but to start off, my wife and I today are celebrating our 70th wedding anniversary. And I think this is a very poor place to spend it. But I would like to present this booklet to the board, especially the chairman, because I had the privilege, it's a poor word, to see and listen to a lot of what took place at your previous meeting. Now, I have a little bit of better understanding of what should be done up there and how a meeting should be conducted, because I spent 2 terms as Board of Supervisors. And I've lived here since 1952. I've attended hundreds of meetings. And I'll kid you not, when I seen and heard what was on that recordings the last months, it made me ashamed. These people in East Fallowfield Township deserve a whole lot better. If you can't handle, and I speak to the chair, if you can't handle the meeting, give it up. I understand you had police officers in the building at that time, threats were made, intimidations were made, and nothing, I heard the gavel one time. This is not a way we run a township meeting. It's disrespectful for these people, and then the Westchester Daily Local News made a big spiel of it. So I would like you to read this. This is the book of Robert's